Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? On this show, I interview educators, entrepreneurs, parents, traditional students, and non-traditional students to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. And the goal is to future-proof the next generation. So talking about future ready, future-proof the next generation. And today we are going to re-examine and unpack education with a super successful entrepreneur and my dear friend, Jeff J. Hunter. And for those of you who don't know who is Jeff J. Hunter, I feel like everyone knows you, Jeff. And Jeff is CEO of Branded Media. And Jeff and we have been working, I feel like, for quite some time. And I'm a personal fan of Jeff. And his work has been featured on ABC, Today Show, Forbes, Inc., CBS, Entrepreneur, and so many other places. Really honored. And Jeff is also a digital mentor at Classroom Without Walls. So really honored to have you on the show, Jeff, and to have smart people like you in my network. So welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you. It's so great to be here, and so interesting how the world has evolved since the last time we spoke, right?
I know, absolutely. And so we are live. I know it's really early for Jeff, 9 a.m., probably slowly waking up. So we are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. And let me know in the comment section where you guys are joining us live from. And so are you ready to get started, Jeff? Early morning.
Always ready.
So I want to start by talking about your educational journey and background. So you actually spent 12 years in college, which is crazy. And you also actually found and got jobs before you got your degree. So I want you to quickly share your educational journey with us.
Wow. Well, I guess the educational journey starts when I'm a kid. And, one of the things that was really valuable to me is I had a grandfather. I have to, his name's Jesse. And that's why, by the way, I go by Jeff J. Hunter, my middle name, Jesse. I actually have two middle names, my other grandfather, William. But my grandfather Jesse was always telling me from a very young age, before I even understood that only dummies worked hard. And I'd never really got that until later in life. But it's really a really amazing to see that, I think education for me wasn't really very standardized at all. I mean, I traveled a lot. I was born in right outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My family moved to California when I was just a baby. I went back to North Carolina. I think I was probably like 8 or 9 years old when my family moved back there. I lived there for 4 years. And when I went in high school, that was like the very first time where I had passion in something, to where it was like more than just like, what am I doing with my life? I didn't know it then. But I loved computers. I loved video games. I thought maybe as a kid, I was going to be, I was dreaming that I was going to make video games. I don't know. Yeah, I was a kid. I was a directionless kid like most everybody else in life. And in high school, actually, was my very first taste of a job. I worked at a computer store. When I was like 14, 15 years old for free. My grandpa used to drop me off at a computer store after school. And I got a lot of hands-on experience on how to build computers and, install things and that kind of stuff. But that's when I said, you know what, just like most people, I'm going to go to college, right?
Just like most people. I love that. Yeah.
I'm going to go to college. And of course, that was the thing. My parents wanted me to go to college. My grandfather was like, let's go to college. This is what you got to do. And I did. I went to college. The thing is, I always had a full-time job. That's why it took me 12 years. And not to mention all the different changes of of who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I started out my first year at college as computer science degree. And then I thought, you know what, maybe I don't want to sit behind a desk and program all day. So I switched over to a new major that came out, and I think it was 2000 or 2001, computer information systems, which was a business degree. It was a business degree with an emphasis on, information systems, which is data, computers. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds. I ended up, when I made that switch, I ended up becoming an IT guy for a school. That was kind of fun, actually. And I remember I made a whopping $14.64, which at the time seemed like a lot of money. And I just thought, well, maybe that's my path in life. Maybe my path in life is to serve in education. And that's what I should be doing. So I ended up, while I was in school, getting this is my very first quote unquote career that people go to college to get, that I got before I graduated college.
This is so crazy.
I was the IT coordinator for a school district, and it was the highest paid non-certified position. So it's a classified position, the highest on the classified scale. And I knew, hey, you know what? This is the right path for me, IT. Well, 4 years later, I hadn't even graduated college yet. I got recruited for yet another career that required a college degree, which was, I was the project manager for a Fortune 500 company. That was definitely the hardest and most rewarding job that I will ever have. It was I call it my first and last really amazing job. So the point of my journey, though, is that I actually got that career, that job as a project manager, before I even finished my college degree. Yet
so crazy.
Yet both of them required a college degree, right? And what I realized was that I had basically, at 26 years old, then 30 years old when I became a project manager, that I had actually already had almost 15 years of experience in my field. But I graduated college in 2012. Right?
But I'm curious, Jeff, I see here's a comment. I think it's probably from Dan, so really incredible. So you mentioned those, especially the Fortune 500 company, they required you to have a degree. So how did you get around that? You don't have one yet. So how did you persuade them, showing your professional background? So share that with us.
I always was really good at making resumes. And I have to admit, I kind of knew what companies needed when I got there. And when I went in for my interview, I remember my interview as an IT coordinator, there was a panel of 12 people there. It was like a giant table, and I went and sat in there. And ironically, my grandfather had just bought me a brand new suit because I had gained 50 pounds and nothing fit me anymore. And I was broke, making $14 an hour, going through a divorce. I mean, that was a really rough time in my life, 25, 26 years old. And I remember going in there and just looking at everyone and saying, here's what I can add value to what your current situation is now. And I was really good at giving them applicable, real results-based examples of what I could bring to the table. As an IT coordinator, I can help you do this. I can help you set up a support ticket system. I can help you do this. I can help, facilitate contracts with vendors and things like that. I was just giving them, really, because I had worked in a school already, I kind of knew what schools needed, and I assumed that it was even bigger at a school district level, right? So I was thinking about how I could add value to the organization before I went in. And same with Philips. Philips is the Fortune 500 company I work for. I actually have to say that one I got recruited for. I got recruited for that one because of my extensive background in information technology, and because I had a buzzword, by the way, in the industry is I was able to manage third-party vendors, which is basically project management, right? So that's the key. The key is that you have to be able to come in with a clear action plan of the value that you can bring to the organization.
Like, that's such a great point. And you have that because you actually have lots of professional experience to give you that insight. And many of the students that I work with, mainly in the higher education space, they are so lost. Like, even after they choose a major, they have no idea what that major is about. They never had a conversation. They don't even have some real life experience in that particular major. So I love how you shared that. So actually,
here's the thing, and that's because a lot of kids in high school and college, like, their first job is McDonald's, and then they wonder why that job doesn't translate to what they want to do. I was blessed. I was so fortunate to know that I really loved IT. I really loved computers, and I went and worked for free at a computer store. That's what I was able to list that on my resume. I put on there that I was a computer tech, since 15, 16 years old, right? So, I think that this is one of the problems with education, and I can't believe I'm going there, but we need to come back to a situation where we have apprenticeships. We need to come back to vocational schools. We need to come back to skill-based education where people learn things that are actually useful in life. And I'm talking in today's world. I'm not talking about learning how to do a trade that's gone over the past 30 years and dwindling down and is replaced by a robot machine doing something. There should be training of applicable skills. Like, this is the gig economy right now. We have people right now who are only 16, 17 years old on websites like Upwork making tens of thousands of dollars a month. And then you've got a college kid who just graduated school who has no job experience, who's trying to get a job during COVID-19 and has no remote virtual abilities, doesn't know how to hold himself accountable or how to add any value to an organization.
It was like many of those children, because they have been through the traditional educational system, they are so used to listening to someone else to give them the order to do something, to seek permission. So all of a sudden, when they don't have that, they have no idea, how to show up, what to do, or even can they even show up? Exactly. Yeah. And, you remind me of a point, because Wednesday I interviewed Elaine Pofield, and we were talking about the $1 million business. So as I was preparing for that interview, and I discovered 40% of workers in the United States right now are non-permanent workers. That's almost like half. And the number is predicted to continue to increase. You were talking about gig economy. So true. But then when you look at the classroom, and I don't think many people are actually talking about this. Like, be prepared for this gig economy,
Nope.
disappearance.
There's no class on how to be an independent contractor and make $1 million, even $100,000. I mean, I've made, over the past 4 years, millions of dollars, and I have 80 something people working for me right now, and they're all subcontractors. They're all over the world. Probably 70% of my team right now is in the Philippines, and it's just a crazy world, and I think that you and I are very uniquely positioned before COVID-19 and this move. I mean, ironically, here you go, your classroom without walls. Well, all classrooms right now are without walls, right? I mean, how perfectly essential are you? And
it's unfortunate, because I have been having lots of conversation with educators in traditional schools, and I actually had a conversation. I was on a podcast interview last night. He teaches at a top school in Australia, sharing with me how so many teachers are actually struggling with teaching online. And what they did is that they make everything like an e-copy, and they call that online class. And I feel like they should have preparing for this way before COVID, but now COVID is here. They don't know what to do. And many online classes are just like a disaster, to be honest.
Yeah. And that's, it's interesting because, I have a 7-year-old, as you know, our boys are almost the same age. And it's, they were passing out Chromebooks for Zoom calls, pre-programmed with Zoom calls.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so interesting because I was watching what they're teaching there. I was spying, I was curious to see. And it was just a mess, 20 something kids on a Zoom call, not giving a dang, like my son who, we had to have a talk about afterwards, who, during the thing, one of the French bulldogs runs into his room and he's like, the teacher's talking, he grabs the dog. Hey, look, everybody, my dog. Nobody cares about the teacher at that point. Right. Like there has to be a structured way from a very young age that shows people really important values that we can teach our kids. And I actually am looking at the chat right now and I see a really, really good question. Is it okay if I bring it up?
Oh, totally. I'm actually having a hard time catching up on some of the questions. Feel free, to answer.
If you can highlight this one, it says, interested in hearing Jeff's perspective on liberal arts education versus skill-based education.
Oh, that's a great question. Let me find it.
Yeah, it was that 2 minutes ago. Something that I first off, I want to point out that there's a lot of value in, the LA paradigm, that he's talking about. There's a lot of value. So I went to California State University, and, a lot of people go through the university system. California is probably one of the biggest. But what's really interesting is that, I will admit there were a few classes that were really valuable. And guess what they were? Account-based management, managerial accounting, probably tax. I think maybe a business tax law, maybe a critical thinking class. These are things that, I hate to say it, but you can easily get on YouTube. You can go to Khan Academy and learn this stuff, and I think that there's a really big ROI mishap right now, and it's between the skill economy versus the traditional, the skill-based training versus the generic, training. And I think what's really happened too is that you're seeing a weird shift, especially within a political spectrum. You're seeing an interesting spread politically that now homeschooling and learning how to be an entrepreneur has become a cool thing to do on one.
Sorry, I'm trying to. I tried to share an article just to back up your point, because Donald Trump and President Trump, just like this article talking about how experience or skills and a lot more important than degree, but there are too many ads for that article.
Talk about timing. Last Friday, Trump signed an executive order striking down the degree requirement for government jobs. Mm-hmm. And this is following suit. This is actually late. I mean, Uber and Google and Apple, Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, all of these companies are striking down the degree requirements. Why? Mm-hmm. IBM. Why would they be striking down degree requirements? Well, it's because you've got people like Mark Zuckerberg, who dropped out of college, is obviously one of the smartest people on this planet, right? And, they're limiting themselves to access to people that are actually more qualified. Let me break it down. Let's just put a hypothetical up there, okay? You've got a business, all right? You've got a business and you need to get the best person for the job. And you've got two people in front of you. You've got a guy who just came out of college, right? And he's never had a job, or he's worked in McDonald's, right? But he's got a 6-year degree. He's got an MBA, and his MBA shows that he should be able to do anything in business, but he's never actually ran a business, and he's never done anything inside of a business outside of flipping burgers at McDonald's. On the second half, you've got a girl who's had a job in a very interesting field. Let's just say that your business is education, okay? Let's just say that she was a tutor at 16 years old. She was a tutor, and then at 19 years old, she started tutoring for high school kids while she was working towards, let's say that she was a online English tutor. There we go. Let's just say she was an online English tutor. All right. Maybe she was tutoring people in Asia how to speak English better, right? And all of a sudden, now you've got this choice between a guy with an MBA who knows about a business, who's going to come in and help you run your business, or you've got this person who has 6 years of experience working for herself and possibly another company doing some tutoring locally. And now you've got to decide, which one's better? Which one's better? Now, I specifically made it a very hard choice because there's going to be benefits to both of these people. But I think
it's not even hard for me. Definitely go after the experience, because I have worked with so many students who look amazing on resume, who look amazing on exam scores, but in real life, they have no idea how to implement. And they mastered exam taking. They figure out the teacher, but they haven't figured out how to implement it. So I will definitely go after the real life experience person.
Well, here's the thing. And this is obviously what I'm seeing today. It's very easy for a B player to make an A resume. It's very easy for a B player to make an A resume. All they need to do is go online, download someone else's resume, which there's a million of them out there, modify them to look good, But I will tell you this. One of the things that is very important, and by the way, as in education, as a business owner, or whatever, one of the things that I've learned is that I've actually put skills-based training one extra level, which is test-based skill, right? So I actually, even when I hire myself, I've hired hundreds of people myself. Now, my team does the hiring and firing, and I don't do that. Thank God. It's a lot less stress, but I still pay the salary, so it matters, right? So, but here's the thing. I have a test that they take before they're even hired, right? Oh, wow. We have like an on-the-job training time where they shadow people on the team, where they have a skills-based test that says, here's an actual real job that you would do as part of our team, and let's see how you perform, right? And that right there screens out so many people, because people have zero experience and they don't know how to do a job. They don't know how to do anything useful.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, that's one of my questions. You hire, as you mentioned, so many people. So what are something specific that you are looking for when you decide, I want to hire this person or not? Share that with us.
Ironically, the things that I want the most are the hardest things to screen, and they're not something you can even put on an application. Like work ethic, right? How are they going to show up to work? Are they consistent and reliable? Right? Do they have a drive and a passion for what they do? These are things you can't put on an application saying, "Do you have passion in what you do? Do you show up to work every day?" Of course they're going to say that, right? But how can you get people to actually prove that? And that's probably why I've hired hundreds of people and only have 80, because I learned the hard way that, I've learned lots of things. One is you can't believe everything people say. It's a show me economy right now. You got to be able to show me what you can do. Okay. The second piece is that you don't hire people just because you like them. Okay. And you definitely don't want to hire people just because of their views. I have a lot of people on my team that have very different opinions on life and different views on life than me. And I think that that's very important. But at the end of the day, I have to make the decisions on what goes forward, right? So one of the things that I would say to people is that it's really important now, even at a young age, to start building your personal brand.
Amen. I so agree. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with a high school teacher on the show actually a few weeks ago. And still, many high schools, K-12, at least in the United States, they ban social media completely. Like how? Like I was like, wow, if you do that, where on earth can our students learn more about using social media to engage in storytelling, story selling, to be a part of the show me economy? I'm like, yeah, they only see the ugly, the dark side of social media, but they don't see on the other hand, you can also use this to do what we're doing right now. We have so many people join us live, and I'm actually having a hard time catching up on the comments. This is a great way to use social media to educate, to inspire, to nurture a community. So yeah, I agree. I so agree.
And here's the thing too. I'm seeing a lot of comments coming in about the personal branding, and somebody just got done making a really great comment here about becoming an analytical wizard and getting a getting some sort of certification. Here's the thing. I was a project manager at a Fortune 500 company, and I got the career before I had my degree. And over the time while I was at the company, they had actually paid for me to go to George Washington University and get a project management certificate and different things like that, which even there, I don't know if those really upgraded my skills as a project manager. There were definitely some useful things there, but I'm pretty sure that the project management certification was still better than all 12 years of my college about my career, right? But here's the thing. Unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, right? Or some sort of, you want to become a professor. There's a couple, maybe, engineers or scientists or, like these things that are, they're specifically and fundamentally education based, right? Like a veterinarian, right? Like these are classical degrees that are not going to go away, because people want to know that they've had the training and that they've seen all of the work. And here's the funny, ironic part about people when they argue about a doctor and how well a doctor degree, blah, 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 is it is experience based. When you graduate from your doctorate, that's when you becoming a doctor begins. The doctorate, after all these years, then you start your residency. Well, that to me sounds a lot like a skill-based training. Absolutely. You're going to say that most doctors go to school for how many years, and then they go for another 4, 6, 8, 10 years to get their residency, depending on what they want to do. If they want to go into, cardiology or whatever else. I mean, depending on what it is, the education's a long time, and the education includes education skills-based training. Just saying. Same with lawyers. You have to pass the bar. Actually, lawyers is probably one of the lowest bars, ironically, out there for a doctorate. It's one of the lowest bars you can get out there.
So true.
Probably why there's a lot of bad lawyers.
But I love this. Actually, last night I was on this podcast, and so again, he's a teacher at a really top school in Australia, and his dissertation is actually very interesting. So he studied people's background and educational background, and the connection between their educational background and the careers they are pursuing right now. Interestingly, almost all the entrepreneurs, creative artists, business people, they come from a very non-traditional educational background. Homeschoolers, Montessori students, Waldorf students, very interesting, where they can gain a lot more skill as opposed to being the traditional sitting in the classroom and taking all those lessons. And when you do that, they are less likely actually to pursue a career, at least in business and entrepreneurship. So really interesting.
Well, now you're getting into the good stuff. Because before I continue, I want to point out that there are good people doing good things in higher education. There are colleges that are adapting to social media. There are colleges that are adapting to the new times. There are colleges that have realized that maybe teaching from a book that was written 10, 20, 30 years ago isn't the best way to guarantee success for our students. Because see, college, grade school teaches you how to go to high school. High school teaches you how to be a great college student. College teaches you how to become a doctorate, right? Like this is something that I learned.
That's my path. Seriously, my path. Yes.
You taught me that. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm so adamant, guys. That's why I got this mug right here on my desk. Look at that. There it is, Classroom Without Walls, right there on my desk. Thank you, by the way. It needs coffee in there right now.
I know.
But,
actually, go ahead.
But here's my point: is that there's good people doing good things, but we have now become a really weird part, and this is where some people are going to get triggered by this. But we have an ideology in schools now, and people almost, I hate to almost even go down the political route, but let's just say there's a very homogeneous view about the world in most college campuses. Okay, most college campuses today, after Hillary Clinton lost, we're creating safe spaces for kids to go and hug stuffed animals and cry, to deal with the grief of the loss, right? And here's the thing, like, no one likes my point of view, by the way, because I'm a libertarian. Republicans hate me, Democrats hate me. If you're international, it's always the battle between the big government and the small government, right? And then you've got guys like me, who are individualists, who believe in the power of the individual, that all of us are different, that we shouldn't comply to one ideology. But what's happening is we're sending our kids to school and they're all coming home with the same train of thought, which is the nightmare for me. Mm-hmm. As a parent, me imagining sending my kids off to school and them being indoctrinated at college, it scares the hell out of me.
Mm. Yeah, totally. I think there's Dan, someone is asking you about what are you going to do with your own children's education, and are you going to send them to college or not? Like, what's your plan for your children? I know they're kind of young right now.
I really hope to God that I'm not having this conversation in 10 years when my son goes to college. I really hope that you and I and the people that are listening right here can make a big enough buzz to change the system. And I think that, ironically, COVID-19 has helped us in that force. I think that there's a lot of changes that need to be made in education. I don't know. The cost is going up of college. I don't think the ROI is really there.
I can share my personal experience. I definitely don't think I'm going to send my kids to college. Not even a high school, primary school. We are very happy with homeschooling. Just my 8 years old. Last year, he was complaining about school, falling asleep. The teacher told us he can't focus, can't really function, blah, blah, blah. But now he's like so driven, selling stuff on eBay. He's really passionate and he loves learning. Now it's like learning is so fun. I mean, just like seeing his transformation. I say this all the time. Children are not the problem, but the environment and in which that we raise our children and the method that we are teaching our children are very problematic. So I'm so passionate about this. Yeah.
And I think you're spot on. I think that, like for me, like I said, I was fortunate at a young age. I almost had that entrepreneurial experience when I went and worked at a computer store, and I was like, oh man, this is fun. Like, this is something I can see myself doing. I went from working on computers to working on networks, which is a completely different mindset, because then you're moving from hardware to using your brain. Even today, my family makes fun of me because I'm really good at computer games and I'm really good at board games. And now my son, Jesse, who's 7 years old, he's almost 8. He's really good at math. Really good at math. And a lot of it it's not because he was born smart. And I don't think people are born smart or born dumb. I think that a lot of it has to do with, educational experiences and how you're able to foster them at a young age.
Totally.
My son at 5 and 6 years old, me and him were playing board games with dice, right? Mm-hmm. We were playing Risk. Risk is the most simple game in the world. One person has 3 dice. One person has 2 dice. The 3 dice, you throw both of the dice, and you see which dice has higher numbers than the other one, right? Mm-hmm. and the person with the higher numbers wins.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more fun than doing and working on the workbooks. I'm against all those stupid workbooks. Yeah, and I kind of want to follow up on this. You mentioned, I think in one of your recent Facebook posts, Jeff, you were talking about education, and you said that it is very hard for you to unlearn some of the stuff that you have learned from college. And that really caught my attention. And I thought that was really interesting because I went through a similar journey myself. But share with us, what do you mean by that? And what are the specifics that you have to unlearn to get to the successful entrepreneur you are today?
Wow. There were a lot of, like, I would say, misconceptions from school about like what success is, like what success means, you know. I didn't really know what success meant. Matter of fact, I think the bar was set really low in college, you know. You have to imagine, when I was going to college, I had a career that was, I had $75,000 a year career, and the last position I had was a 6-figure job, and I was set. I made it, to my family, to my friends, to my spouse, like I had achieved the dream. At 30 years old, I had a 6-figure job. I had finished my school. I had a kid. My job, I had a company car, company computer, company phone, company credit card. I could charge $75 a day for food. That's how I got fat. And yeah, and you know what? When I left that job, I actually I was sad about this. I had to turn in my printer. I had a company printer. I couldn't even print out like my resignation letter. I had to send it via email. And there's just so many different things that you don't realize when you're going to school about the real world. And I guess for me, I was always taught in college that, I would come out knowing the answers. And actually the biggest takeaway that I learned was that I didn't know anything. I think when we are taught that we're going to learn a bunch of things and we're going to be really smart, which is, I think, what kids do at college. And, we as parents, I was taught that by my grandpa. He always told me, and by the way, it's somewhat right. Like, you have to educate. But my grandfather, he passed in 2016, 94 years old. He always told me that if I didn't self-educate, I'd always work for somebody else. And I didn't care. I was like, great, I'll work for somebody else. That's fine. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else. But what I found was that if you really want to make way, if you really want to make a big change and impact in life, then it's very hard to do that in the entrepreneurial world. Very hard. It's very, just like you had to leave your profession as a college educator for you to pursue your passion, because you were being judged and criticized.
And bullied. Yeah. And
bullied. And same with me, by the way. I had built my own little side hustle while I was working at the Fortune 500 company. I was doing I was having fun. It wasn't anything, against the policy. I had my own little thing I was doing, managing projects for myself on the side, usually web projects, considering I was in the healthcare industry, completely non-conflicting at all. So you've got to really think about what is it that you've learned over the years, and that's not true. And that's a very hard thing for people to do. If you don't believe me, go online and say something nice about Trump.
Yeah, great. And I just share this comment based on what you mentioned, Jeff, and so the master's tools, this is one of my favorite quotes, cannot dismantle the master's house. And if you really want to have some radical innovation, it is very hard to have radical innovation within the system. You really have to use a new set of tools, at least, in the education space or in many of the of the corporate environment to create and build a new house. So yeah, I want to
That's a beautiful quote.
share that. Yeah, one thing I have learned. Yeah. So I wonder, like if you can share with us, and we kind of already discussed quite a few things. If you can summarize, like maybe start with your personal experience, like reflecting. You are a very successful entrepreneur now. So what do you think are some really important hard skills and the soft skills that you have that really help you get to where you are today? So we can learn some of those important lessons, and maybe we can, share those with our own children.
I think that one of the biggest challenges is that I actually am an introvert, and I know you and I talked about this in Singapore last year, but that was a really hard thing for me to overcome. Like that was tough. And for me, because I like computers and computer games, like that's what I want to do. I'd rather, like I got this computer right here. Look at this. This is little gaming computers. Just so you guys can verify that I'm a nerd. And I didn't even build that myself, by the way. If I was totally nerd, I would have built it myself. But I think one of the things that's really valuable and important to understand and to even almost relearn and rediscover about ourselves is that I don't believe in labels. I don't believe that there's introverts, and I don't believe that they're extroverts. I think that there's people that haven't developed those skills yet. I don't think that and this is what I hate about taking those personality tests and the 16, you ever heard the 16 personalities, right?
Yeah,
like
I have taken quite a few myself.
The Myers-Briggs and all that. Like,
yeah.
I don't like those. They put you in a box. They tell you what you can and can't do based on your personality and what you're good at, what you're not good at. That's a hogwash of baloney. And by the way, I want to point out there that we can do anything we want. Doesn't matter where we start. Look at me today. I would have never in my life, especially even 4 years ago, imagined that I'd be speaking on stage with Gary Vaynerchuk, that I'd be faculty at Digital Marketer, that I'd be on here with you as an expert talking about education and entrepreneurship. I never believed in my life that I'd going back to my first job interview. That was that panel. I think I was probably 26 years old, going in front of that group and having an interview in a suit in front of a board of 12 people. Like I remember at that point in time thinking, this is crazy. I'm never going to be able to do this. But you know what? I just ponied up and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And one of the things I found as a trick for me is that when I wear a suit, when I wear something nice, it really gives me confidence. It makes me feel like $1 million. So maybe we should think a little bit more about how we present ourselves. It gives us more confidence in our own image. And that goes for us online. Wearing a suit is like having a good social media presence. When I didn't magically, I was just featured on entrepreneur.com weekly, which is an entrepreneur's official podcast just last week.
Congratulations. I saw it. Yeah.
I still can't believe it. And they came to me, said, hey, I'd like to have you on the show. Right. And Alan Taylor, shout out to him. He's a great guy. And he believes a lot like us. And his story is very similar, by the way. He has no college education. He has no degree. And now he's the host of entrepreneur.com. He was one of the very few contributors to Fortune that didn't have a degree. Like, this guy is all over the place because grit and experience and exposure outweigh education.
Wow, that's, my friend, needs to be on t-shirt. I love that. I so great. And in fact, from my experience, running my own school and just like talking with the students, I discovered sometimes the more educated a kid becomes, the less likely they are going to innovate and try new things. And I recently had a conversation with the connection, and she looks really amazing on resume, all those things, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, this and that. And she's still in school and trying to figure out what she wants to do in life, like after so many degrees. Whereas I have also met, 12 years old, 15 years old, who have never been to school, just like self-educated, and they know exactly, a high level of clarity on who they are. their core values and a career path that is in alignment with who they are. So I just love that. I like the reason I launched this show is to really show parents there are different ways to success.
Well, I want you to highlight something that Lee says in the chat. Look at that. He says, no, it's Peter. Peter, host resort. I don't know if I said that right, but he says we need to bring discovery back into education and drop the check boxes.
Peter came to my show, so yeah.
Yeah. How about making people Google some answers? How about making people Google some answers? You know how I learned how to do a lot of my job, guys? I Googled that.
The same, join the club.
There's no guide on how to run a virtual assistant business. These guys don't know, but I have my main business that generates the majority of my revenue, the lion's share, probably 65-70% of all the income I've generated over the years, is vastaffer.com. It's a virtual assistant staffing company. It's actually how I got connected in the first place, through Dennis, right? By the way, ironically, Dennis and I had a call the other day, and he's using our team again. But this company, it was about timing. It was about a little bit of tenacity. It was a little bit of timing, and maybe a little bit of luck. They don't teach you how to do that in school. But I do notice, and I don't know about you, but I've noticed that the harder that I work, the luckier that I get.
Amen. And you also show up to me as a very authentic person. You are very good at building relationships. I think that is something that students don't really learn. Maybe they will learn a little bit about like networking, but it is very different from, cultivate their emotional intelligence and building relationships, and even like digital networking, how to network online nowadays. And I think there are lots of soft skills that you have, Jeff, that really helps you get to where you are today. Totally. Yeah,
and that's the thing too. I will go back, and if this advice can help anybody, when I got hired at Philips, the Fortune 500 company, as a project manager, introverts unite, Lisa says.
So many. I'm so shocked by how many, like almost all of my friends are introverts. I feel like I'm the only one who is not, to be honest.
You're definitely not. That's for sure.
I get energy from talking. Like right now, I'm getting so much energy. Yeah, it's like.
Well, I'm an energy feeder too. Like if I feel like someone's having a fun conversation with me, and it raises my energy too, because my default stance is like this. Right? I'm like what I think Trump said, low energy. That's me. I'm low energy. But what's really fun is that, we live in a time, and I hope that you guys will take this, but when I worked at Philips, when I went in for the interview, I remember him telling me that 80% of my job was soft skills. 80% of my job as a project manager was soft skills. I want you guys to let that sink in for a second. I'm going into a 6-figure job. I'm in my interview, and I'm told by the guy interviewing me, shout out to Dave, that this job is 80% soft skills. It's about managing relationships with people. It's about building trust with people. It's about making people actually like working with me.
100%.
One of the things that really blew my mind over the years is when I actually understood what it meant to be a leader. A lot of people think that there's a certain personality type of a leader. You take your personality test, and for me, I came back as a ENTJ, which is, and by the way, 51% E. So I was almost an INTJ. As a matter of fact, when I first took the test, I was an introverted NTJ. And if you guys if you just want to go to Google and type in ENTJ, you'll see what it means. That's what I've become now after taking the test, which is basically a very judgmental, extroverted leader. That's what my personality type is now. But I didn't start that way, right? But it's asking me a bunch of questions about how I would handle situations and scenarios, and it's evolved. So what I want to say, guys, is that a good leader to be successful, and by the way, you don't have to be a leader. Look, a lot of people don't want to be a leader. They just want to go to work. They want to do, there's just nothing wrong with that, right? I need people like that on my team. I don't want people to try and take over my business or poach my clients. I want loyal people. But here's the thing. What I've found, and if anyone tuning in, if all you did was hear this part, this would be so valuable, because this is the number one thing that I've learned that's helped me be successful, and not only in my own business, but working with other businesses and people on my team, is that you become a good leader when you're able to identify how other people feel and react. Their quote unquote personality types. And it's funny because I don't like the word personality types, but it's their situation. You have to have empathy to their situation. And when you can adapt, you adapt like a chameleon to help and make other people feel comfortable. That's the skill that you need to learn in life. You need to learn, and this is what I hate about the polarization of the world right now, is that I have lots of opinions and views that everyone probably hates. But when I get into a room with someone and I understand where they're coming from, I'm able to relate to them, and I'm able to have a discussion at their level. And the question is, are you empathetic enough to have a conversation from someone else's perspective?
Amen.
That's what's really key.
Amen.
Oh my God. So true. I mean, I also did lots of research in this area. Like, so many studies have shown that EQ is actually 2 times more predictive of a person's success than IQ. And just a few days ago, I actually read a study, like they examined CEOs' intuition and soft skills. CEOs with higher level of intuition, they actually generate more profit for their company. They make better decisions. They're better leaders.
They make better con artists.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, I love it. So I see that, oh my God, you guys are amazing. So many great comments. I'm really just having a hard time. So I love this, and saying that, students, what they need is someone who show up, believe in them. I think we all need someone like that in our life. Not necessarily a teacher, but someone who actually shows up to tell you, you can do this. I believe in you, unconditionally. And for those of you who are not familiar with this TED Talk, I highly recommend that you check this out. And I watched this a few years ago. And so this is actually an Indian professor, really famous study. And so what he did was that he threw a bunch of computers to a rural village in India where children didn't even speak English. But the kids, they figured out how to use the computer. But they had someone who is like a grandma in this to be with the students. The grandma every day was like, guys, you can do this. The grandma has no understanding of computer whatsoever, but just shows up and tell the kids how much she believes in the children. And the children, they learned computer without knowing English, any computer science background. It is a really powerful.
Wow. Share that in the chat. I want to see that later.
Yeah, I will send a link to you. Really, really powerful. Yeah. We only have a few minutes left. I really want to ask you this, Jeff, because I love diversity. I love working with people from different countries. And you work with people literally from all over the globe. So share with us, what are some differences that you have observed between, for example, children in the United States versus children from different countries, especially in Asia, that you tend to work with lots of them. So share some observations with us.
It's funny. I'm probably going to get some hate from Americans on this one. But
we don't have
a lot of people, they when they hear that I hire from Asia, specifically from the Philippines, I'll get some flack from people that say things like, Jeff, you're just exploiting third world country, cheap labor and this and that. And it's funny because, the cost is obviously beneficial, but that's not the majority reason. The main reason why I hire from overseas is because they're loyal. They're just more loyal. And, here in America, another problem that we have breeding here is that we've got 1.8 is the average tenure at a tech company. 1.8 years. Imagine spending all that time training and educating and everything we're doing, and then they leave after 1.8 years. That's the average time span that someone will stay at a tech company. And I think the thing is, and I hate to take a negative spew on this, but I think it's valuable because maybe there's Americans out there that can inner reflect and say, am I part of the problem? But one of the things that I think is a problem, which is we teach our kids from a very young age how to be confident, not competent. So we have a bunch of people that are probably not the best at something, but think they are. And I think that's reflected in video games. You ever see a kid who's playing a video game and he gets killed in a Call of Duty or whatever, and he just rages? He's like, I don't know how he did that. Oh my God, you're trash. That's America wrapped up. That's the next generation wrapped up. Is people that have all sorts of confidence in themselves, but don't have the competence to back it up. And if we just focus a little bit more time on building competence and empathy and understanding, and another thing that I love about the Philippines is that they're very trained from a young age how to care for people. That's why there's so many nurses in the Philippines. They're just more, they care more. And I just wish that Americans would care more for others and think about how that reflects into our own culture of just caring.
Oh, such a great. I mean, it's a collectivist culture. I grew up in China. And so like in certain parts of China, when people talk, when I say that I want to go to the bathroom, for example, I don't say I want to, I will say we want to go to the bathroom. I don't know if this is even making sense, but it's a very collectivist, like it can be good and bad. On the other hand, it's very hard for us to self-promote and build confidence. But on the other hand, very nurturing, very caring, very authentic, like deeper bonds between people. Yeah. So I love this that you shared. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. And wow. What a great conversation, Jeff. I know I can just talk with you forever. Every time you never fail to impress me. So share with us, where can people learn more about you? I have been sharing your website and LinkedIn, but yeah, share with us.
Yeah, I'd love for you guys to connect with me on LinkedIn. I see the link below. I'm very opinionated, just FYI, I say lots of things. If you looked at my Facebook account, you'd probably not like the first image that I've got up there about how I feel sometimes. I'm a little provocative. You guys, and if you go to Google and just type my name, Jeff J. Hunter, I finally have a Google Knowledge panel up there and has a link to all my different profiles. And I just want to start really valuable conversations. I really want to help. I think that, I'm not going to be able to change it myself. You're not going to be able to change it myself. But I think that together we have a really good chance of bringing forth the truth about the future of education and what we really can do to make a change. And it's going to start with a little bit of our own individual responsibilities. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to, like most things, it's going to have research, and the research is going to say, hey, people that are homeschooling their kids, or, people that are, doing things on their own, or entrepreneurs, like we're going to have to be a part of some study that shows that, there's a better way of doing things, and it starts with ourselves.
Wow. What a great way to end today's conversation. I love it. Start with ourselves. Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. So next Friday, and we are going to discuss emotional intelligence. Yeah, with what a great way to follow up based on today's conversation. So definitely mark your calendar and join us live next Friday, same time, same location, and make sure that you guys follow Jeff. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Jeff, and have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you, Jeff.